Hello, everybody, and welcome. The meeting will start in just a moment. Hi, everybody. My name is Colleen Stovall, and I'm the Director of Programs and Events for AIA Miami and Mcat. I'd like to welcome you all today to today's program, which should be pretty amazing. But first, I'd like to introduce to you the chair of the APA Gold Coast section, Juan Mullerath.
Thank you, Colleen. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for having us as partners to this great presentation. I'm so pleased with our partnership with Mcat. We've worked together on many sessions, and I'm hoping for many more to come, and especially for this one today, and having Joe Minicozzi, one of our members, present this morning. So I'm very pleased. Thank you all for all those AICP and APA members. Welcome, and hope you have a really informative session today. Thanks.
And Jason Hagopian, who is a board member at Mcat.
Afternoon, everybody. This is Jason. Yes, I'm the board member, vice president for the Miami Center for Architecture and Design. Welcome, everybody. Just want to give a few updates on things happening in and around Mcat. Please look at your calendars and go to our website. We have our book talks. We just had one yesterday, the Building Eden, and then upcoming on September 10th at 6 p.m. we have a book talk with Kobe Karp, and then following that date and to be determined, we have another talk with Arthur Marcus, The Architecture of Whimsy. So please keep an eye out for those two book talks, and please register when you can. Our biggest news right now is the upcoming Urban Warrior Awards preview on September 17th. This, of course, is an online virtual event. Tickets are on sale now on our website. Of course, this is a precludes our actual Urban Warrior event, which will be hosted next year on May 20th, 2021, in a live in-person setting, fingers crossed. So right now, we do have a call for nominations for our next Urban Warrior. This information's on our website. Please go to the website and nominate people for this exciting award. During our preview event on September 17th, we'll have speakers Mimi Ferre, panelists Marta Viciedo, Meg Daly, Mitch Kaplan, Bill Fuller, and Martin Pania. So it's going to be a great online event. Please register now. Also, look out every Wednesday for our Mcat survival guide. This comes to you via an email. If you're not getting this blast, please go to our website and sign up. And then I also want to mention at our website, you can view our virtual space situations exhibit in 3 dimensions on our website. You'll get kind of a tour of the Miami Center for Architecture and Design, plus the incredible exhibit that is actually at the Mcat right now. So with that, I want to introduce you to Ryan Romanchuk of DPR Construction. And I do want to give him and DPR a huge thank you on behalf of the board and Mcat for all the support that DPR has given us lately. We can't do it without you, so it's all you, Ryan. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, thanks, Jason. They told me, I think my colleague Mike joined maybe a month or so ago and gave a little bit about DPR. So I wanted to give a little bit additional. They told me I've got all of, oh, wrong slide there, but they told me I've got all of 3 minutes. So I'm going to try to not make it boring and run through this stuff really quickly, show you guys some imagery, a little bit of what our world looks like currently. So at DPR, we exist to build great things. For those of you that have never read Jim Collins, he wrote the book Good to Great. He was an influential piece of really DPR's founding. It's how we came up with the slogan, things. It's really more than buildings. It's people, it's relationships, it's products. It's more than just buildings. So core values, pretty typical. We believe in enjoyment, uniqueness, and ever forward. You're going to see those really come through in hopefully my 2 or 3 minutes of talking here. Core markets, we are a little bit different than your typical general contractor in South Florida. We don't do multifamily, so we're not a big high-rise builder. We really focus on technical projects, advanced technology, healthcare, higher ed, life science, a little bit of commercial. Commercial is really corporate office and some complicated hospitality, but we get excited about the complicated things. So I'm going to touch on really quickly one project in each core market that we've built. So this is the FAU Schmidt Family Complex, completed really at the end of last year, $60 million, football operations, College of Business. We actually took a parking garage structure and converted it to the College of Business. Really cool project for what was Lane Kiffin and the team up there. So kicking off this year in their new facility. Next one is Baptist MD Anderson Cancer Center. This is up in Jacksonville, 330,000 square feet, concrete podium, steel structure. I don't think we do enough steel structure here in South Florida. We always default to concrete. I love steel for some of the prefabricated components. 3 Linux. One of the other interesting things is it's got a 110 linear foot prefabricated bridge that we set fully completed with skin systems and everything. Over an active roadway. Next item, Vivex Biologics. For those of you that are familiar with Miami, they were in the University of Miami Science and Technology building right off of 95. They moved their clean room facility to Opelika. So we actually built this inside of a warehouse. It is 20,000 square feet of clean room, 80,000 square feet total, very technical. I'm going to show you some of the laser scanning stuff a little bit later here. Digital Realty, this is a shot in downtown Miami. Probably a building you don't realize is actually a data center building. That is a 2.5 megawatt generator that we're sticking in the side of that building. So it just goes to show that this stuff does exist in the urban core of Miami here. Last project here, the standard Miami Beach. I said we don't do, we do commercial when it gets really technical. We are currently, most of you are probably familiar with the standard property, but we are currently doing a renovation there, full kitchen, full spa, all new infrastructure. And as you can imagine, being on an island there, the logistics are pretty complicated, but that's the type of stuff we get excited about. Lastly, just want to touch on a couple of things that really make us unique. I was talking about it with a few folks before we jumped on the call, but really where we think the world is going. That is a prefabricated bathroom right there, SurePods, DPR owns SurePods. We believe strongly in prefabrication. We also believe in self-perform work. For those of you that aren't familiar, the old way of a general contractor used to be, you used to build yourself and hire out certain trades. More and more as an industry, we've moved towards really just brokering everything out and just being a manager. DPR believes in being a builder, not just a broker. So we do self-perform, we have our own craft, we have our own staff. We self-perform drywall, concrete, a little bit of electrical. I think if you took all of our drywall across the entire country, we are the 3rd largest drywall contractor in the country. So that's actually our folks at FAU Schmidt Family. As I touched on, we believe in prefabrication. This is actually a shop of ours in Phoenix called Digital Building Components, Robotic Welding. We are looking at all of our projects and looking for as much as we can and pushing into a more manufacturing approach instead of a build it in the field type mentality. It is the way that construction in Europe has gone. We are seeing more of this on the West Coast as you see the cost of labor in the field really becoming insurmountable, is moving more into a controlled environment, higher quality, higher safety, more predictability, and that's really what we strive for at the end of the day. So prefabrication, this isn't just a West Coast thing though. This is actually our project up in Atlantis. This is JFK Medical Center. You see these call outs here, prefabricated bathrooms, prefabricated head walls, MEP racks. This isn't something that we just preach. This is something we turn to reality. As I touched on, I like steel. That's a steel structure there, and it's got a lot of prefab components. The other unique thing that we are doing that this group probably cares about is really we believe in design integration, and we have what we call a Design Integration Academy. And what we're trying to do is really understand the design world even further so that we can partner. We believe if we understand your world, we can all mitigate risks as a team. We improve team dynamics. We really just feel like there's a value in us integrating further. We are seeing more design build across the country. Personally, I think it's the right way to go. As you can see here, real value is not low cost on a higher design. It's achieving the lowest true cost on the right design. And feel like when we integrate and work on a design to build approach, we have the right tools in place to really drive this. Lastly, you guys saw our Matterport design. We believe in technology. We kind of talked about the construction industry altogether. Hasn't really moved the needle as much. I think we're on the precipice of really moving it. We believe in model-based estimating. Everyone's heard BIM, VDC coordination is really the basics, but how do you really move into prefabrication, facility management, and laser scanning? So here's a pretty unique example. I talked about the Vivex Biologics facility. We went to an existing warehouse in Opelika and took the laser scan. So after we took the laser scan, we built out all the walls. And not only built out the walls, but prefabricated the walls. Then we put the MEP components in, and then we really use it for facilities management. So it's a life cycle of us really partnering together and collaborating to turn over, really building it virtually before we turn it over. A lot of people talk about it. It's a lot of eye candy, but we really believe in this and go execute it in the field.
Thanks, Ryan.
So that's my 3 minutes. I kind of hummed there, so hopefully that's all right.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thanks for all of your support. I want to, hi everybody, I'm Cheryl Jacobs. I want to take a moment now and introduce our main speaker for the day. And to everyone that's on, if you would mute your video and we'll go from here. I'd like to bring in Joe Minicozzi, AICP. He's the principal of Urban 3, and prior to creating Urban 3, served as the executive director for the Asheville Downtown Association. He's an urban planner, imagining new ways to think about and visualize land use, urban design, and economics. Joe founded Urban 3 to explain and visualize market dynamics and created by tax and land use policies. He holds a Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Miami and Master of Architecture and Urban Design from Harvard. In 2017, Joe was recognized as one of the 100 most influential urbanists of all time. So that's a big shout out. Joe, you want to take it away?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
And you can see my screen.
Absolutely. There you go.
Well, thank you. So let's go ahead and get started. My name's Joe Minicozzi. I'm practice a practice of economic modeling of cities. But I have architectural roots in Miami. A lot of this is actually, Ryan, you might be interested in this. This is the other end of the geospatial technology that you're doing at a mechanical end, but we do it at a city level with Esri technology. But first, let's talk about architectural influence and where I came from. I actually grew up in Rome, New York, in upstate New York. And I don't know if y'all know where Rome is. It's up near Syracuse. And Rome's such a dump that they can't even market themselves. This is like a marketing campaign from Rome. Like Rome is in the middle of all the action in upstate New York. So if you're in Albany, why not drive 2 hours to Rome? You know, because you're going to do that, right? It's a joke. Rome started actually in a pretty good position. It was where the Erie Canal started in Rome and went east and west from there. So if you ever sang the song about the Erie Canal, you sang about my hometown. And this is what my hometown looked like back in the heyday. When I was a kid in the 70s, it was destitute. It was part of the Rust Belt. It was crumbling. And somebody came up with the creative idea that we need to get some tourists here. So they put a pitch in to rebuild Fort Stanwix. So y'all remember your pivotal battles of the Revolutionary War in Fort Stanwix, right? Well, it wasn't all that pivotal, but it was an idea. Now we had this unfortunate problem that all of downtown was built on where the fort was. So when I was a kid, all of this stuff got torn down and it got replaced with a wooden fort. So, you know, we occasionally get a Canadian tourist and that's about it. But that was my downtown. And if that wasn't good enough, they took the rest of downtown and just blew it apart. So they, you know, put in a pedestrian mall because, hey, you know, it's the 70s, we need a pedestrian mall. A public plaza on the pedestrian mall because apparently 12 acres of open space wasn't enough. You needed another 4. Parking garages because y'all are going to drive up from Florida and come look at our wooden fort. A new city
Joe,
hall.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Colleen, sorry for interrupting. The screen that you're sharing with us, do you mean to have the value per acre map of Auckland, New Zealand?
Oh, it's not moving?
There you go. Sorry for breaking in there.
Oh, that's all right. You missed a lot of slides.
You did.
Hang on a second. So it's not sharing? Are you seeing that?
Now we can see the whole it's not full screen though. And there's a drawing thing in the bottom right corner. There's some kind of art thing.
You're not seeing the map of New York right now?
Yes, I am.
Are you seeing the mule in the, how about the old city?
We're seeing the New York State map and the Rome inset. Now we're seeing an older black and white photo.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it's showing that it's live on my screen. It's just not playing. Weird. Are you seeing a map of Rome right now? And the fort?
The sacking of Rome?
Yes. And
Yep.
Are you seeing the pedestrian mall?
It says the sacking of Rome, and it's a red outlined fort, I think, or something.
It's not animating, huh?
Nope.
All right. Well, that's a new one. It's weird. It worked in the tryout.
Are you clicking on the correct screen when it says share?
Yeah. So here's what you're seeing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the Auckland. Here's New York with the Rome gets highlighted.
No, we're seeing Auckland.
All right. Apologies. Let me. I'm gonna quit Keynote and come back out. I apologize for that. I don't get why this didn't work.
Okay, Joe, technology happens. And everybody, thanks for your patience, and we'll get it going.
I feel like there needs to be some like Girl from Ipanema song or something like that that comes up for an intermission while this is reloading.
I could sing. No, that's
Should we do a
probably not a
duet?
good idea.
Yeah, right now I'm getting a spinning beach ball. It's coming.
Hey, is Mercury in retrograde or something? Because we had technological issues last night.
Well, what's weird is it was playing just fine. We did a little, I even went through and did a
Yeah,
test move on the screen.
it's all right.
I will say this, I've done probably 100 presentations since COVID started, and this is the first time this has happened, so that's new. All right, let's try this again.
And if there's an issue with you not having the full screen, don't worry about it.
Well, thanks for stopping me on that one because it was, I speak in pictures. Let's see what's showing right now. Do you all
But I
see my
want a
screen
house.
now? Okay, that's what's showing.
Yep.
How about now? What do you see?
We see the, you know, the other monitors that shows like your next slide
Gotcha.
with your presenter notes.
Gotcha. All right, that's helpful.
But you're not screen sharing right now.
Yeah, and I just switched monitors.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So if you can't do the full screen, don't worry about it. Just,
No, I can. How's this?
it's fine. Although there is an image on the screen of your color wheel. But I would say rather than try to get rid of it, to just move forward.
You're not seeing full screen of
Yes,
the
we see
upstate?
full screen, but on top of that is the color wheel from from the software. There, that's gone now. So
Well, that's bizarre. So is this showing,
yes, you
did
got the
Rome just
map.
animate?
No, but just go ahead and move forward without the.
All right. Is it showing the postcards?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Is it showing the postcards disappearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Full screen postcards. I think your animations just aren't working, but I think you can just kind of rather than worry about it being right,
Okay.
just move forward.
Okay. So, well, let me just kind of jump ahead through all this. So basically, what was key about my hometown getting destroyed was, this is my Uncle Joe's pastry shop. He paid my mom $300 to name me Joe. That's how I got my name. But this building was condemned in eminent domain and he lost it. So here's an Italian immigrant son who put his whole work into building or buying this building and putting his pastry shop in it, and it was seized and taken away. What was left of my downtown was this fort. I went to that church. I fell in love with the architecture in that church, wanted to go to architecture school. And I basically moved from Rome, New York to Miami, escaped the upstate New York snows and ran into these two. And what was unique about Miami Architecture School back then is that Miami was undergoing a change toward more urban design led by Liz and Andreas. And we were focusing on stuff like this. And this was new to me. I would never grown up in a place that actually was growing. And you know, the traffic that you all see, Jaime Correa had us picket US 1 one time as part of our architecture studio. We went and protested commuting at University of Miami. And it was really about community design. Like, well, these are the places we're making for people, humans. And we used to joke. We used to joke about the cartoon of what cities are, but really it's real places of, this is San Antonio. Policy is driving this stuff. So I spent a semester abroad in another Rome, Italy, and lived in this apartment, went to school here, and ate here. And what I learned about cities is that they had, yeah.
It's not moving forward. So I think what you need to do is just go back to your not full screen.
Okay.
And just do it that way.
Gotcha.
Yep.
How's that?
Yeah, there's you and your uncle.
That's my dad.
Dad.
Former father. He's passed away. But these are my parents. So this is a DNA that I have in me, is to be them. So if we think about the city, is the city a choice or is it fate? This is actually a cartoon from Leon Crier's book, Choice or Fate. And what I want to proffer to you is that these are choices. These are choices that we make in our cities based on policy. And what we were learning at University of Miami is a lot of it was due to zoning. So flash forward, I moved to Asheville, North Carolina. Many of you all have probably been to Asheville. Let me go ahead and get rid of this junk here. I'm gonna give you guys more real estate. In Asheville, it was essentially the direct opposite of Rome. It didn't take part of urban renewal. It didn't destroy its buildings and build the wooden fort. They actually had these buildings sitting around. So this was downtown Asheville in the 1980s, just bombed out, left fallow. And like a Greek choir, anytime somebody tried to work on downtown, it was met with community resistance, that we're not urban people, we're mountain people, we're rural. If you want urban, go to Miami, don't bring it here. But these are all biases. I ended up working for a real estate developer, Julian Price, his company, Public Interest Projects, which is a for-profit real estate development company. And basically 75% of his asset portfolio is about $15 million, went into sticks and bricks, and 25% went into business startups. So we would do things like this, fix a building and make apartments in it. This is an old hotel. But what we found is that people didn't really understand what cities were at a policy level. So we're always advocating for, what does it matter for our community? What is the downtown for our community? So if we bring people the data on that, they'll better understand it. And I'll give you an example that my city, our state made it illegal for my city to annex land. Actually in Dade County, you all have a growth boundary. So the land that you have is critically important and has to be managed. So think of it this way. If you're a farmer, you're gonna look at your land a certain way about how many acres you have. And when you talk to farmers, they always talk in economic terms. What's the water yield per acre, the fertilizer per acre, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a business model. So a city is no different. If you actually look up the word incorporate in the Oxford American Dictionary, it says to constitute a company, a city, or other organization as legal corporation. So speaking of good to great, you know, we should be doing the same with not only our businesses, but we should be doing that with our cities as well. And in my city, Asheville's worth $14.7 billion. My city's incorporated, my county's incorporated, my state's incorporated, our country's incorporated. Joe Biden said this on the Stephen Colbert Show. The United States is the largest corporation in the world. And this was 2016. I'm such a nerd. I went and looked it up, and there is the US code that lists us as a federal corporation. So Asheville at $14.7 billion is 6 times the value of Ted Turner. So how does Ted Turner look at real estate? You know, is he looking at, or as his business, he's looking at the numbers that come in and seeing what's profitable and what works. We should be doing the same thing with cities. So back to the city as a crop, here's one of the buildings that we rehabbed. We put in ground floor retail, second floor office, upper story residential. The city did the streetscape project. So we actually got criticized for the streetscape project as a subsidy for our building. We took the taxable value from 300,000 to 11 million. So the community got 3,500% more taxes off that. So do you have a 401k plan that grows by 3,500%? I mean, this is a good gift for our community. Why aren't we doing more of this? How do we build wealth for our community so we can afford to do things? Build a greenway, put in another bike rack, we don't care. And people would say to me, they're like, well, Joe, that's that. We've got a Walmart, and this Walmart is worth $20 million. It's like, fair enough. Our building's 11 million, but our building's on 0.2 acres. Their building's on 34. So per acre, we're producing 100 times more taxes per acre, double the retail taxes. I guess that's 90 times the residents, and 74 versus 6 in the employees. We get more stuff in that building. We produce more wealth for our community. Or conversely, this drains your wealth. So just run the numbers on that and understand it. And I want you to realize this isn't complex math that I'm doing here. I don't have a finance degree. I have a degree in architecture. This is about just having the patience to look at the math and go through this. You know, and why it matters as a designer is tax policy drives design. So here's another way of looking at it. I presented at the International Association of Tax Assessing Officers Conference, the IAAO, which makes an AIA conference feel like Burning Man by comparison. This is the squarest conference ever. This guy got up and presented at 8 in the morning on how cheap Walmarts are. Think about how brilliant that is. You've got 2,000 assessors. You're showing how cheap your buildings are. He's going to pay the lowest taxes possible. So I walked up to the microphone and I asked him, I said, Mr. Terrell, what's the useful life of one of your buildings? And he immediately shot back 15 or 20 years. We're designing the building to depreciate as fast as possible so that we can tear the building down, build another one, and depreciate it down again. We make the cheapest buildings possible. So don't hate the player, hate the game, understand the game, understand that their commitment to your corporation is the useful life of a cat, and that's what you're going to get out of it. From a design standpoint, our tax policies reward junk, period. Understand that. As designers, we should be advocating for a different form of financing our cities rather than off cheap buildings. It's that simple. So, okay, you're a designer, you're not a policy wonk. Why does this matter? Joe, look, I'm not going to go through this problem. It's like, well, you better think about it, because actually, if we want to talk about design and policy, this guy in 1973 published this document, The Cost of Sprawl. So here we are dealing with climate change and all these other issues, and we've been down this road before in the 60s, and yet we failed to act on this stuff. So if I could do an economic, or sorry, an MRI of your brain and show your brainstem activity in blue versus your creative thought process in green, can I do an economic MRI of your place? So back to Asheville for a second. It's the economics that are driving these decisions. It's the economics that the Nixon administration kind of got to with the cost of sprawl, but they failed to communicate it in a manner that we could really absorb. So here's my county, 350 square miles of it. I have non-taxable in gray. So this is a big park. This is a big park. I have low value in green, high value in purple. So this is low value. This is high value. That's the Biltmore estate. That's America's largest house. It's worth $100 million. Okay. That's a lot of money. But that's really not a fair way of looking at it, because it's a 180,000 square foot house sitting on 8,000 acres of land. So that's like having the biggest gas tank and bragging about the miles you get. It doesn't tell you anything about efficiency or productivity. So rather than looking at it from a total value standpoint, here it is from a value per acre standpoint, different map, but same information really. And here it is in 3D. So we just don't stop at 2 dimensions. We're just like, let's look at it in 3D so you can really see where the potency of your built environment is, and you can really see the effect financially of how you grow your city. So you can see where downtown Asheville is right here. You can see our little cousin of Black Mountain. You can see its downtown out here. So this is how you can see the economics of your region writ large. Now there's also matters of equity in here. This is a community of lower wealth over here. This is a community of higher wealth over here. This is more productive than that, and I can show you that in the model. So be aware of this and how your city operates. We've done this all over the country. We've done one in West Palm Beach, Florida. You know, guess where the ocean is? This is West Palm Beach. Downtown West Palm Beach is actually more potent than anything on the island of Palm Beach. But you can see how it flattens out at I-95 as you head west. And this is Wellington out here, which is like full of polo ponies and all this stuff. And it's really not producing at all. And, you know, lots of times people are like, well, you know, Joe, if you're just going to argue taxes, you're just going to have big buildings everywhere. And my attitude is like, well, no, do the math on that. So this is a tall building. Everybody in West Palm Beach calls this the Darth Vader building. But this building here is 2 blocks away from this building on Clematis Street, yet this building, this little 3-story building, at $10.4 million an acre, is more potent than this one at 9.2. So do the math on this stuff before you make judgment about what's good for your community and understand that. We also grabbed the Donald's properties. So here's this is 2016 numbers, but there's the Donald. He's worth about $400,000 of value per acre, which is actually less productive than Shotgun Shacks in the Northwest neighborhood. So they're at 600,000, he's at 400,000. Go figure. So if you're not willing to do the math on this stuff, you can't see what's happening from an equity standpoint, a community design standpoint, a land planning standpoint. This is Dade County. We're doing a project out here in Doral. But you can see what's going on from a potency standpoint. And this isn't a fully processed model yet, so this is a draft model, but I just wanted to pull this out here to show you Coral Gables, Brickell, so you can see that. And we can have copies of all of this for you all if you want a copy of it. So just realize this is just geospatial modeling. And I know this joke doesn't work for people under the age of 35, but I like the joke anyway. It's a geospatial model of understanding productivity and how it works in the community. Now, if that's the revenue side, what about the cost? In Eugene, Oregon, we did a model there that was a full ROI. So treat the city like a business, which it is. It's a social business. Here's their revenue. You can see where downtown is. Here's the university, and this is the village on the other side of the university. This is floating the whole city in the bay, and then what's above the water line is what's net positive. What's below the water line is what's net negative. So this is the cost of that development pattern, and this is what people pay into the pot. So if you net your expenses against your revenues, you can see what's in the black and what's in the red. And then this is the whole city in 3D looking from above. You can see what's net positive. If you lift the model up like you're looking for a salamander under a rock, this is what's net negative. And you can see that subsidy spread across the model. So they wanted to know what it was, why was it happening that way? And so we broke it down to a series of building typologies that basically make up the city. So this is residential, low density, medium density, high density, mixed use, low, medium, high, commercial, low, medium, high. And you can see let me turn the guides off. You can see what those building types are. Now, when you look at their financials, this is how it turns out. We call this the Brady Bunch, you know, the 9 slides. But you can see the subsidy to single family detached. And that's the truism of what happens in the city. And we also know the psychology of what people are going to say. They're going to say, well, Joe, I want a house. It's like, well, that's great, but you shouldn't be doing 80% of your portfolio is in subsidy. That just is a recipe for disaster. So all cities, and you know, you might circulate in Miami along the US 1 corridor, but when you start looking west, you start to see the same pattern in your city that is a truism for most cities, is that the majority of our land use is in this subsidy. So we need to advocate for balancing that out, because not only is it financially driving you broke from a greenhouse gases and transportation standpoint, it's also producing a tremendous amount of carbon effect on your community. So we need more in this zone over here to survive into the future. So our recommendation for them was to just pick 4 spots to start to grow up a little bit, to have that potency. Just since we're into the financials, one of the things that we wanted to talk with them about was their stormwater system. And stormwater is a really big deal in South Florida, but this is all the impervious surface stuff in the community. So that stuff, you have to build a stormwater because it doesn't go through buildings, parkings, or roads. And so this is all the impervious surface in the city. Here's the city in area, here's the city boundary, and here's the city as a square. So this is the same thing. It's just the same area as what's on a map, basically. But here's all of the footprints of the roads, the parking, and the buildings. This is the stormwater cost. So we asked if you just do half the stormwater, if you had more 2-story buildings, let's say, than 1-story buildings, wouldn't you have half the stormwater cost? And the engineer was like, yeah. So we just basically, just by doing that one example of just densifying the city, you've cut your stormwater bill in half. That's $222 million. So one of the things that you'll see is, and think about this in Miami, Coconut Grove, Fort Lauderdale, wherever, when did you all vote on your stormwater system? And what's the best use of $222 million? You know, would you send your kids to Stanford for a summer program or MIT, or would you pay for more stormwater? Like, these are huge expenses in communities that we're not making these choices. So when we look around our city and see that we don't have money for the greenway, the art teacher, or the dancing traffic cop, it's not that we don't have that money. It's that we've blown it in a system that we can't afford. And that's the reality of what happens in cities. Now, there's also matters of equity that we have to talk about. So going back in time, I don't know if y'all know about redlining, but redlining was created in 1934. And this is an inconvenient truth of the New Deal program. We have to be agnostic about our politics, but it was the New Deal program that created this. So we wanted to get people into housing. Single family housing wasn't a birthright, but in the 1930s, we created a new mortgage system to allow more people to get into single family housing. And in doing so, the federal government issued an edict that all communities had to adopt these maps. And in the maps, you had to rate your community: good is green, desirable is blue, declining is yellow, and hazardous is red. So if it's hazardous, they're not going to do an investment in it. And you can see all the different cities across the country that did this. So it was up to everybody to make their own map. So I'll go to Miami for a second. Here's the Black Grove down here was redlined. So they actually drew an area, and you can see what they're measuring right here. They're measuring foreign-born people, none; Negro population, 90%. So in every city, they did this. They definitely singled out African Americans in Negro population measurements, but in some cities it was Jewish people, it was Italians, it was Russians, it was French people in Manchester, New Hampshire. They found ways to keep wealth out of people's hands. Now, what's crazy about this is if you actually just look at the form right here, it says, detrimental influence, none from a Negro standpoint. So here they are saying, like, well, if you're Black, it's cool, but why would you make it hazardous? Why would you take away wealth in that neighborhood? And what's even crazier about it, right here, it's like, this is the hiding in plain sight. Here's the value change from 1929 through 1936. It was basically going up at 118% in value through that period. Through the Depression, real estate was actually going up in that neighborhood. In the rental, it's going up 130%. So how is that, on God's green earth, how is that hazardous? So this is Coral Gables by comparison. Coral Gables is only going up 120% in home ownership and 116%. So actually Coral Gables, the white part, actually Latino, was going up less than the Black Grove. So I just went ahead and mapped it. These are all these different areas. I just grabbed Bay Shores, Liberty City, and downtown. And if you'll notice, all of the redlined areas were actually growing in value and the green lined areas weren't. Now what happens here is that takes away the ability for somebody to sell their house. And this went on for 3 generations. It went on from 1934 to 1963. And we did a project in Kansas City. They asked us to measure it. So here's Kansas City, Kansas. Here's Kansas City, Missouri on the other side of the state line right there. So these are 2 different Kansas cities. And we dropped the redline map on it to show what's going on the redlining. So for 30 years, if you lived in this neighborhood, you could never basically sell your house because I couldn't get a mortgage. So if you're Black and you want to sell your house here, I couldn't buy it because there's no way to get a mortgage. Now this stopped in 1963, theoretically. This is their dividing line. So view this like Calle Ocho or something like that. We dropped this on a race map, and you can see how there's still African Americans trapped on that side of the line here today in, 60 years later. So why is that? Now, secondly, putting the uncomfortable conversation about race aside, let's talk about this from an economic standpoint. What's the problem, Joe? Well, if I can't sell my house, I'm going to leave it to my kids. My kids are going to move to Chicago. They don't care about Kansas City, and they're going to let the house go. So from an economic standpoint, we're looking for vacant land. And if you look at the map, you can see all the vacancies in brown here, highly correlated to the redlined areas. So that's where you're essentially eliminating intergenerational wealth. So a Black family can't sell their house. They can't recapture their own wealth. This is what we did in our country to people of color in our communities. And on the Kansas side, they're looking at 7 square miles of vacant land, or 3 square miles, and they're looking at 7 square miles over here. So we tapestried the color ramp on the redline data, or the redline data on the color on the valuation, and you can see here we are 60 years later, and there are these cuts that every neighborhood takes in the loss of value. And on the Kansas side, it's even worse. It steeps down even further. And they asked us to dig a little deeper, so we did. And this is just a look at the vacant land in the community. And we'll just take this one neighborhood up here that's about a 1/2 square mile. These are all the delinquencies in that neighborhood, because, you know, if your whole neighborhood's vacant, you're not going to care about paying taxes. So these people aren't paying taxes. And in this neighborhood, you're looking at a valuation of $400 for a vacant lot, which is nothing for a vacant lot. Now, if you put a house on it, it actually bumps up to about 17,000, which isn't great, but it's 40 times more than 400. So that was a lesson. It's like, well, if you put some houses on this stuff, you'll actually start to do better. Now, what's crazy about the redline data is you can go back and pull the old values, and we ran a net present value on that to basically proffer the question, if we just hit the delete button on redlining and never did this, what would we have gained in taxes? So putting 732 houses on the lots and running the net present value of the taxes, it's basically $30 million. So I told them, I said, look, your great-grandparents followed racist policies. You can't change that. But what they basically did is they wrote a check for $30 million, walked out in the street with it, and just lit it on fire. They just burned $30 million in this one neighborhood. That's the cost and consequences of racist policies. So you can't turn that back, but you better stop it. And so here's the deal. You need to put houses on it. In this one neighborhood, that's all you need is 18 houses. That's it. But you know what the banks are going to say? Their banks are going to say, well, Joe, the house is going to be $180,000 of construction cost and paying the contractor. That doesn't meet the $17,000 for the market or the taxable value in the area. That's crazy. There's no way that I'm going to give a mortgage. Is the bank being racist? I would argue yes, because they're reinforcing something that started with the original sin of racism. But you're not going to change the banks. What you can do is you can, the market's got biases, so just move past that and put on, maybe a bond or a tax increment, finance it, or just reach in your general fund and pay for 18 houses. Surely you can find 18 people in your community. And you're probably thinking, well, Joe, that's not fair. That's Kansas City. In South Florida, we're different. We're a metropolitan place. We're multicultural. We don't do this in South Florida. Okay. This is a Sun Sentinel article from last year. This is July of 2019. And they did this great article about rich people paying taxes. And these are all these mansions. And these are their actual tax bills in Palm Beach County. So $1 million for taxes. It's a 58,000 square foot house, which is super awesome. They have a separate red and white wine tasting room because you need that. I don't know what they do for a champagne or a blush. I guess they go out in the lanai or something. This one's got a golf course on the ocean because you need a golf course on the ocean. This one's got 2 mansions because you definitely don't want to be in the same mansion with your spouse, but they're paying $1.5 million. Now, you know me, I'm an apples to apples guy. These are like all different size lots. So let's do them on a per acre basis and the numbers change. So let's rearrange them based on potency. This one here, the smallest one is the most potent. The double mansion's in the middle of the pack at 230,000. And the golf course one is actually the least potent. So the numbers are right there for you. So let's go from them to the great unwashed, the rest of the 99 percenters, the regular people. Here's the rearrangement of the value. So from high value to low value, and then middle of the pack is up here. So let's go from them to, the great unwashed, the people like us, middle income. This is low wealth. This is a Northwest neighborhood, which is I guess the Liberty City of West Palm Beach. She's paying $970 in taxes, but it's really not a fair way of looking at it because her house is the size of a parking space. It's a little shotgun shack. Per acre, she's crushing it at 32,000. Now you probably don't remember the taxes that from the wealthy houses, but let's take this guy up here at 77,000 and compare him. He's actually more potent than the golf course one. Now this guy doesn't have a golf course. He doesn't have an ocean view. I mean, heck, he doesn't even have a yard. His jacuzzi's in his parking space. And that's that. What's crazy is he's in this block called Mango Promenade. He doesn't even have a street. He's got a sidewalk that goes through the block. It's the oldest block in Palm Beach County, and he's more productive. Let's go from that to talk about these townhouses. $5,000, $8,000, this is what they pay in taxes. In a lot of communities, these are illegal to do joint townhouses. Not so much in Dade County, but when you leave Dade County, these are an anathema to do this kind of stuff. But per acre, they crush it. They're 300,000, 400,000. Look at them compared to the double mansion. Who would have thought? So this is usually where I stop the presentation, but let's keep going. We grabbed Rush Limbaugh's property. Here he is. He's got a $56 million mansion, 28 to 29 million tax value. So he gets a 50% haircut from market value to taxable value. That's his gift from the state baked into tax policy. Check her out. She gets a market value reduction down to a taxable value of less than 1%. So let me ask you this, you're a designer. Is it worth it? Is it fair? Is it equitable to give somebody of low wealth a less than 1% reduction from market value to tax value, yet somebody that can afford to get a $56 million mansion, they need a 50% break? If we're not looking at this stuff, we can't see how design is being manipulated right in front of our eyes, and we can't see what's going on to our own citizens. And heck, at $33,000 or $32,000 of tax production, just looking at the taxes she pays, that's more than Mar-a-Lago, the president's winter White House, which is a private club and a hotel. So this is a commercial property paying $28,000 in taxes, and she's paying $32,000. When we deal with social issues in our community, and we deal with crime, we deal with inequity, we deal with riots, we're dealing with a lot of things that we're doing to our own fellow citizens, baked right into policy, and it manipulates design in our community because it's manipulating the wrong thing. It's driving us to a value of changing our community and making policies inequitable. So I would argue that architecture and city design is not our free will and it's not our choice, that these are choices that are being made for us and steering us in certain decisions. And there's a suburban bias baked into the system. And we need to articulate that and talk about it. One of the favorite folks that I like to talk about are these two behavioral scientists of Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. And they did some groundbreaking work. Actually, they won Nobel Prizes in economics for figuring out how our brains operate. And we tend to think of ourselves as rational, that we have some sort of brain that we figure things out. So they call it fast and slow brain. Our slow brain is the processing brain. That's what you do when you sit down and do a math problem, a complex math problem. Our fast brain is when you're driving a car and you're making millions of decisions all at once. The majority of our decisions are made in fast mode, even though we should be processing them in slow mode. So what ends up happening is we think we're Mr. Spock, but we're really Homer Simpson going after donuts. If you give me rewards for doing the wrong thing, I'm going to do the wrong thing. It's that simple. So figure out the reward system. There's a great psychological law called Hernstein's matching law. And for anybody that has a dog, you know this, that if you reward the dog to sit, the dog is twice as likely to sit if you offer a reward than if you don't offer a reward. And the more that you put rewards in the system, the more you're going to see that behavior. And it's going to come to the point where you don't even need to give the dog a treat. You can just say sit. But this is how animals behave, and we are just hairless apes operating in cities. So if I'm operating a grocery store and I've got carrots and potato chips, and the carrots are priced at $50 a stock, and the potato chips are priced at 10 cents a bag, how is the consumer going to behave? What are we going to do? So if you're pricing sprawl less, what are people going to choose? So is it free will, is it choice, or is it fate? They're going to choose the potato chips. So when you look at the pricing of this housing, which would you choose? I'd take the one that gives me $1,400 a year as a bonus, that I'd have to pay less tax. Of course I'm going to choose that. Now, from an architectural and planning perspective, what's better for our community? What offers less greenhouse gases? What's better for the environment? The single family detached, or you start packing people in to waste less infrastructure? It's going to be this stuff, and it's going to be more cost effective, but we don't offer that incentive. So I'll give you one last incentive that's baked into the system. This is my favorite. This is looking at the dirt value. Let me just move this out of the way for a second. This is a key of the dirt value. So there's no buildings in this image. This is Cheyenne, Wyoming. And you expect the neighborhood to look like this, that all of the houses are blue, so they're all $15,000 an acre. When I was presenting this in Cheyenne, Wyoming, I said, what's going on here where this is blue at $15,000 an acre, and when you cross the street, it bumps up to $40,000? How does land double in value when you cross the street? And it was really funny. There's a tax assessor was sitting in the front row, and she just belted out. She goes, well, this is cheaper because it's a bigger parcel. The more land you have, the lower the value. Did you all know that? Like, the mayor just started laughing so hard, he almost spat coffee out of his nose. I was like, really? Okay, so I get more land and it's cheaper. She goes, yeah, because less people can afford larger tracts of land. When you have less people, there's less market demand, and much less market actors within the supply. So we have to offer that discount. I was like, okay. So I've got 3 miles of infrastructure around this property. This fellow's got 200 feet. So I said, we get more infrastructure and you give me a discount. And I'm seriously not making this up. Her answer was, we don't charge for infrastructure. I said, so the money that you put into the ground, you don't ever want it back. She goes, that's not the way our standards work. I was like, okay, if I can get more infrastructure, I got a bigger lot, I can probably put more stuff on it. If I have more stuff, that means there's gonna be more trips, more car accidents, more fire calls, more commerce, more police calls. She goes, we don't count any of that. I said, so you don't count any of the hard costs, none of the soft costs, none of the costs of the city are associated with how you tax it. She goes, no, it's just the way our system works. So I went to the assessors conference to ask them, their magazine is called Fair and Equitable. And I asked them, how is this fair and how is it equitable? And what's funny is, get yourself out of your own profession for a second. I'm not an assessor, what the hell do I know? But I was gonna ask that question and put myself in that uncomfortable position to see what they had to say. And to my surprise, they're like, yeah, this isn't fair and it's not equitable. We need to change that. It's gonna take a while to get through the system, but you're right, that's pretty messed up. Like, who would have thought? Like, where did this come from? These tax policies are just legacy policies that came from England, and we're just not even looking at this stuff. This is probably for something of agrarian culture. Did you know that in Florida, I can rent a cow and have it walk around on my property, and my property automatically becomes agriculture, and I'm only paying it's only valued at $600 an acre? Like, that's insane. Why would you have a policy like that? But drive around anywhere in, like, particularly suburbia, and you'll still see these cows wandering around. Well, it's because there's a loophole in Florida state tax policy. So, Moses didn't deliver our tax code. This is human created. These are policies we make, and it's anti-good design at a planning level and at an architectural level. These aren't invisible forces that are making this happen. This is policy. And so we need to realize that these aren't choices, that there's a fate that we're tied to that we need to pay attention to. So I'm going to skip ahead here. There's levels at which we need to talk about architecture, the buildings we make, and then what we're building them into. We're building them into an environment that's got a fate tied to it. And you all realize this. There's rising sea levels. You deal with climate issues more than we do up here in the mountains. And you can make a great building, but if it's going to be dead in 50 years, why bother? Or why don't you try to solve that by changing policies that don't keep on rewarding the wrong thing? How wide does I-95 need to keep on getting? It's like, why is that even a viable option for transportation at this point? So just to close, we have to allow our information to be absorbed. We have to keep an open mind about information as it comes in and question whether or not it's right or wrong, and take uncomfortable positions about how it affects our community at a design level, and step outside our comfort level every once in a while and allow ourselves to learn. I'm not a tax expert. I don't belong in this field. I wasn't laying awake when I was 9 years old thinking someday I'm going to be working in land use taxation. Like, I still consider myself a designer. I'm just designing upstream in the policies and working with that. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm like an accountant, just using maps. I'm a geo accountant, and your accountant doesn't care if you buy a boat, right? Your accountant cares if you can afford a boat. So that's what we try to do, is get people to see that so they can make better decisions and make better choices, and allow this to be choice architecture, not fate architecture. So we put it on a map so people can see it. If you want to read more about our work or see anything else about our work or what we do, these are some books that cover it. I apologize for the video not working. I have plenty of those online if you want to get a copy of those, of an actual video that works instead of is as clunky as what just happened, and do your math. So thank you for your time. And I don't know if we have time to get into some questions and go into PowerPoint DJ, Cheryl, but that was 45 minutes, sorry.
No, that was perfect, Joe. And as always, you leave me thinking about things. Frankly, we don't have questions in the chat. So, and we are right at 12:57. So, sorry about the technology, but it's the life we live now with Zoom. I want to thank you so much. For me personally, it's so great to have reconnected with you after all these years. And I saw that Bernard and Surya are both online for this. So,
oh, hey.
I don't know, Bernard, if you're still there, if you want to unmute and ask Joe a question, our former boss.
He's going to put me in a panic now. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
no, I guess he
Popped off. All right.
hopped off. So anyway, Joe, thank you so much for spending your time, and send me, if you can, the complete presentation, a PDF, and we'll post it on our website, and keep doing this great work. It's wonderful.
Thanks. And thanks for having me.
Sure. Take care, everybody, and thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoyed the program, and stay tuned for more. And don't forget about our Urban Warrior event that's coming up really soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.